Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today we are coming at you with a Fire Emblem Engage class skills tier list. Class skills are skills that are learned at level 5 of a promoted class or level 25 of a special class. These class skills include all skills that are in the game by default, not any DLC skills that will be added in future. And so let's get on with it. One thing to talk about class skills in Engage is that they only work for the class they are in. You can't take class skills from one class into another class. You can't get to level 5 General, get Swap, and then move over to like a Wyvern Knight or something. You have to stay in General in order to continue to use Swap. Same with all these other class skills. If you do get to level 20 and go back to level 1 with a second seal, you still keep the class skill, but if you change to any different class, you lose the skill. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about these class skills. Because of the restriction, we'll be talking about the skills not just on their own, but also in relation to the class they are a part of, is how we'll be ranking them. Because if you don't consider that, then some of these skills would be completely busted, but they are limited and balanced by the classes that can use them. Anyway, let's get started. First up is Alir's Divine Dragon class skill. Unit's engage meter is shortened by 1 step. It's not the worst, but it's pretty minimal. With how many engage recharge spots there are on the map and how many other ways there are to charge engage, especially with stuff like Liberation on Alir, you're rarely gonna feel this. It comes in handy, it's nice to have, but it's not really that impactful. Fell Spirit, one sec, let me double check. Yes, Fell Spirit is the version that you have as a player. There is a version Dark Spirit that drains enemy engage meters. Fell Spirit automatically charges your engage meter. This is probably B tier. It's a little bit slow, but it's pretty good, especially for continually charging passively an emblem that you want to use multiple times if you don't want to have Veil be in combat. It's pretty good for like Micaiah then, pretty good for Byleth, but ultimately because you have so few chapters to use it in, and those chapters tend to be a lot more encouraged, you're a lot more encouraged to clear those chapters quickly, and so you don't have a lot of turns to just kind of stake around. And so this is going to be basically, if you engage, let's think of it this way, if you engage on turn 1, and you don't have full engage charge, so you have 3 turns of that. 1, 2, 3. Turn 4, you disengage, and then you slowly gain engage meter. I think it has 6 pips, so by turn 10, you would then be able to engage again, passively. Yeah, it's not that great, actually. Not the worst skill in the world, but it definitely has issues. Golden Lotus. This is the skill from Alfred's promoted class. During combat, it may prevent 50% of damage taken. Trigger percent is dexterity. I think this is also a pretty mediocre skill, mostly because it's on Alfred. And Alfred's not great. His promoted class, I think he has lances and swords, I want to say. He's not terrible if you can get him there, but he takes a lot of investment to really make it worth it. And Golden Lotus, it's a dex-based trigger skill that halves physical damage taken, not even magical. You can't really rely on it. It's not that great. Ignis is pretty nice. It's on Saline. May add half of strength to magic damage or half magic to physical damage. It says all other damage, so I'm assuming physical and whatever they classify emblem damage as, if this is true damage. Trigger percent equals dexterity. I think that's a pretty useful skill. It is another dex trigger, so it's a little unreliable, but it can do a lot of extra damage because Saline has pretty decent strength and magic growths, especially in Vidam. So Yeah, I'd say it's probably B tier. Certainly a lot of better skills in the game, but it's not bad. Debating moving it up to A tier, but we'll see what these skills are. As most of these class skills are actually pretty underwhelming, to say the least. And so the fact that, I'm trying not to just put them all into D tier right away, so they have a little bit of staggering to them. But some of these differences are going to feel pretty minor. Soul is a very good skill. It's half damage dealt recovered as HP, trigger percent is dexterity. The one thing that really holds it down and makes me want to put it into B tier, but I'll still leave it as A tier, is that Diamant's dexterity cap as successor is only 22. So you are maxed out at like 22%. You could theoretically get more from cooking or using tonics, or from Emblem boosts or skills, but you're basically looking at like 22, possibly, like you could maybe get it up to like 30-ish% if you really invest everything else into dexterity. So pretty low chance of activation. But that said, when it does activate, it's a pretty good skill. Diamant is generally pretty mid-range all around, decent speed, decent bulk, decent strength, and so this allows him to utilize that, all of that pretty well. I'd say it's a pretty solid skill. Luna, also an A tier skill. While making an attack, may ignore half a foe's defense or resistance. This is Alquists' promoted class unique skill, the Tir d'Elite. I am not pronouncing that right because I'm not French. Pretty good. Alquist also has a much higher dexterity cap, and so you can activate this a lot. He has good dexterity and good speed, and so you're going to be activating this a lot. It makes up for his kind of middling strength. Really solid skill all around. Once again, because it's a triggered skill, you can't really rely on it, but you can get it to the point where you're triggering it mostly when you need it. It's just kind of going to disappoint you when it doesn't proc every once in a while. Grasping Void. Maybe I'll put this into C tier. Ivy is a great unit. C tier, not C tier. Ivy's a great unit, but Grasping Void relies on the opponent's magic stat. And oftentimes, if you're attacking stuff like Armor Knights or Halberdiers or Heroes, they aren't going to have very high magic stats. And so when it does activate, you're looking at like maybe 2 or 3 extra points of damage, which is not much. If you get into a mage battle and this activates, you're dealing a lot more damage, but most of the time you're fighting physical units who have really low magic anyway, and it's not really going to do much for you. World Tree. World Tree is an A tier skill. Dex percent chance to not consume a use of a staff. If it's just on a heal staff, it's kind of nice. If you conserve a use of like a warp, that can be incredible. And I can't wait for all of these I can't wait for all the LTCs that are going to come around and rely on rigging procs of World Tree in order to keep one warp staff for the entire game. Trust me, it's probably going to happen. I can see the world in which that happens for crazy warp strats and be able to just use them nonstop. I think World Tree is an A tier ability if it activates on a high use staff, like a high power staff, like warp, rewarp, rescue, stuff like that. Great ability. Sandstorm. Making a physical attack may calculate damage with 150% of defense instead of strength. Triggered percent equals dexterity. This is on Tamara's Picket class. And Tamara herself has a ton of defense, more defense than strength, and so when this activates, you are doing a lot more damage. However, again, you have to kind of rely on it to proc in order to deal that damage, and her dex cap is decent. I don't actually remember what it is off the top of my head. Probably around what Diamant's is, maybe a little bit better. It's not great. It's similar to Ignis. When it activates, you're really happy for the damage it deals, but you can't really rely on it. Back at you. When countering, unit may deal extra damage equal to half of the damage taken. Trigger percent equals dexterity. This is hot garbage. So, first of all, it requires you to get targeted. It requires you to get hit. It requires you to take a lot of damage. And then it requires you to hit back. And it's on a random proc, so you can't even rely on it. Hot garbage. Fagato got screwed over yet again. You would think, and I thought, hey, you know, swords and bows, really good skill, combination with Leaf, who's adaptable, arm shield, all that stuff. Yeah, except Leaf then always uses, like, a weapon that you don't really want him to use. And so, I don't know, D tier. Fagato got screwed over. Cupido has so much potential as a class, and then it just got ruined with this. It's like, why can't this be... I swear, mix up the skills a little bit. Fagato got ruined. Soul Blade on Melusine. When attacking with a sword, unit damage calculated using average of foes' defense and resistance. Who's a Melusine? One sec. Also, I need to skip this track. It is going way too hard. Classes, Melusine. I just need to remember who Melusine is. Okay, now the music's working. Okay. Melusine. I don't remember. Oh, Melusine is... That's why I don't remember. Melusine is freaking Zephyr's class. You are not a playable class, so no. If in the future Zephyr becomes a playable unit, if you need attacking with sword damage calculating average of foes, defense, and res, if Melusine becomes a playable class and or Zephyr becomes a playable unit, this is an A tier skill. It becomes insane. It allows you to really deal a lot of good damage to units that specialize in one defense or another. Yeah, really solid. But Zephyr is not a playable class, so yeah. Untiered. Why did I say untiered? I'm doing great today. Run through. Attack an adjacent foe, then move to the space opposite that foe. It's a mobility skill. It has some merit. It combines well with Sigurd's abilities, Canter, and Momentum. So you can just run around, strike through, and run away, stuff like that. I know that there's going to be some crazy strats that this unlocks, but at the same time, it's pretty niche. But I'm putting it in B tier because it's still more useful than like slight adjustments to your engage growth or random chances to do like 2 more damage or to take slightly reduced damage or whatever Fagato's got. Brave Assist, you all knew this was coming. Brave Assist is S tier. Brave Assist is the hero's unique skill that if unit is at max HP and makes a chain attack, unit attacks twice. Chain attacks are great. Brave Assist is busted. This also works when using Dual Assist Plus. So you can chain attack with Brave Assist. Brave Assist activates on those chain attacks that you can make at full movement range. It is a fantastic, fantastic ability. Seriously, like, to the point of Brave Assist is so good to the point of I hesitate putting any units into any other backup class, promoted class, outside of Hero, because Brave Assist is just that good. Pincer Attack is B tier, not because it's bad when it works, but because setting it up is very difficult. Pincer Attack, if you initiate combat while an ally is on the opposite side of the foe, you will always follow up if your weapon allows. This is great. It's insanely powerful. It basically allows you to, always double. It doesn't proc on smash weapons, but every other weapon you can always double. If you're using a brave weapon, you'll always quad. Once again, it's just that the setup required. Actually, I'll put it at A tier, screw it. I think it's a fantastic ability. Always double, no matter what your speed is, no matter how slow you are, no matter how fast the enemy is. Just requires a little bit of setup. But great for killing bosses, great for killing other enemies, great for just getting out extra damage, especially when you're on Maddening or something that has enemies with very high speed and you just really need to double. I love it. I think it's great. I think that the requirement of how to set it up and the fact that it only works on player phase is what really brings it down. But I'm willing to put it in A tier. I think it's great. In fact, I'm going to mix up the A tier a little bit. I think that this would be something like that. Yeah, I'm going to mix these up a little bit and sort them within tiers as I do them. Reforge. If unit has 11 HP or more, an adjacent ally is broken after combat, sacrifice 10 HP and remove the break status from that ally. Reforge is hot garbage. Every once in a while, if you have one ally who is not an armor unit, who is trying to take on multiple mixed enemy weapon types, and ends up getting broken, this will activate and you'll be glad it did. More often than not, this activates and you just drain 10 HP from a second unit for no real gain. Reforge is a cool idea to be able to counteract break, but it doesn't really work, especially when most of the enemies in Engage, like, they mix up weapon types and whatnot a decent amount, but mostly you'll be fighting like 2 or 3 units with an axe and then 2 units with a lance or a sword. And so what's going to happen is the first axe person hits your lance unit, you get broken, Reforge activates. A second axe unit hits your lance unit, you get broken, this activates. It doesn't prevent the break in combat, so you still don't counter the unit that breaks you. It only procs after combat and removes the break. If this prevented the break from happening in the first place, it would actually be worth talking about, but because it doesn't prevent the break, it only cures the break after it happens, it's terrible. So is Smash Plus. Push the target 2 spaces instead of 1 when making a smash attack. I'm sure that there is a world in which this creates some cool strategy or something fun or funny that you can do, but in Maddening, all the units that you really want to push off their heal tiles are unsmashable. And when you are hitting with a smash weapon, you're usually hitting with the weapon in order to deal like 50 damage in a single hit, not just to move the enemy. I'm sure that this will come in handy once or twice for someone, but Smash Plus is a terrible skill, and frankly, really, really hurts Berserker. This is a nerf to Berserker right here, the fact that they get Smash Plus instead of anything else that's more useful. Merciless is a B tier skill. It's the warrior class skill and deals 50% bonus damage against broken foes. Real great. Actually, I'm debating putting it A tier. Yeah, I'll put it A tier. I think it's more useful. In that case, I might need to bring some of these down. Yeah, maybe I'll put the percentage procs down here, aside from World Tree. Yeah. Merciless is really great because what you do is that you set up by breaking the foe, and then you bring in your Merciless unit and you deal 50% bonus damage. Break kill setups are already a regular part of making the game work. What is this track? I don't like that. I'm sorry, but when you have a track that is just screeching, it's not that pleasant to listen to. Sorry about that. Yeah, anyway, break setups are already a regular part of feeding kills to units. This just allows you to feed kills to units at much higher HP rates. And it allows you to basically do the work of 3 units with 2 units. Because you break, and then you kill. Sure, if you had the ability to just kill anyway, you wouldn't need to do the break setup. But if you do the break setup, this allows your warriors to do a lot more damage. Great skill. Love it. No distractions. Grants crit plus 10 during combat with foes that can't counter. This is the sniper special skill, and I think it's B tier. I'm debating B tier or A tier. It's only on sniper. Crit plus 10 is nice against foes that can't counter. So it's limited in usefulness. Snipers generally do pretty well without it anyway. It's not bad to have. You're always kind of happy to have an extra 10% crit chance unless you want to use your sniper to chip, and then so it actually limits your ability to chip down enemies to feed kills to other units. By the time you have a level 5 sniper, you might think, well, why would I do that? There are so few units that you want in sniper anyway. I don't know. Combos well with a killer bow with a Fates Forge. Fates Engraving. Fates Killer Bow plus no distractions is a really easy way to get 80% crit before skill. It's not bad, but it's just kind of not really exciting. Careful Aim. If unit initiates combat without moving, grants hit plus 40 during combat. I think it's also a B tier skill. I think it has its uses, but I don't think that, generally speaking, it's good practice to stand still, unless you're in a really drawn-out fight where you're bringing the boss to you, and then you stand still and attack them. You can do that more in Maddening because most bosses move. I just think that if you're not moving, 40 hit, it can be useful. 40 hit is nothing to sneeze at. It's a lot of hit. But preventing you from moving in order to get that 40 hit on a class that's already usually pretty accurate anyway, it's fine. It's fine. It's not great. Maybe it's like C tier, top of C tier. Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't really excite me. Swap is actually A tier. Swap is really good. Switch places with an ally is so versatile, not just because it moves you, but because it moves them. Having this on a class skill slot that doesn't require an emblem ring, doesn't require an inheritance slot, doesn't require a bond ring, having an ability to move another unit as a class skill in a slot that most people kind of forget about anyway, I like that. It's limited to general, but generals are pretty good in Engage. So I've found several uses for swap, when I remember that I have it at least, and when you find a use for swap that gets you that one extra tile you need, it's pretty big, especially in a game with such low movement like Engage. One extra tile of movement makes a lot of difference, both for getting your Armor Knight or General out of trouble, and getting someone else into the fray. I love swap. I think it's an A tier skill. I would argue putting it at the top of A tier. That's just me though. Ally defense. If unit is between an ally and a foe, reduces damage to unit by 3 during combat with that foe. It's pretty good. It's basically a free like arms shield or a free gentility That's almost always active if you have units that are moving close together in a pod. It's very viable, very valuable. 3 extra damage might not sound like a lot, but it's on a great night, and so you're getting doubled most of the time. And so that 3 damage per hit gets reduced to 6. And then if your Great Knight fights multiple units on a turn, that can then double like 12, 18. You're saving a lot of hit points with just 3 extra points of effective defense. And that's not just defense, that's also resistance. This is a really great skill. The only restriction is that it requires you to be right in front of an ally and having the enemy attack you instead of that ally. But I think it's probably on the same power level as like Merciless and whatnot, so I think it's an A-tier skill. I think it's pretty good. Pivot, I'm gonna say, is C-tier at best. It's not terrible, but... Pivot, why did they give Pivot to a Paladin? Pivot moves you to the opposite side of an ally. Paladins, at least in theory, should have the highest move in the game. They have 6. I will argue day and night that Paladins in Engage should have 7 movement because there is nothing special about a Paladin, and their class skill is technically more mobility, but it's at the end of your turn, you give up attacking or doing another action in order to move to the opposite side of an adjacent ally, who is probably at the back of your army, or this is your way of getting slightly ahead. No. No. Pivot is the worst positional movement skill in Fire Emblem. Of them, I think reposition is the strongest, then swap, then shove, then swap, then shove and drawback are pretty similar. I know, swap, shove, and drawback are pretty similar in power. Reposition is the best, and pivot's the worst. And so pivot, it's not like detrimental to you, it's not incredibly useless, but you're rarely going to ever use pivot. You're rarely going to ever use Paladins in Engage, and I think pivot is just kind of another slap in the face for anyone trying to use Paladins and make them work. Hobble's B tier, it's the Wolf Knight ability. When initiating combat with a knife, inflict move -2 on the foe. It can be good. Hit them with a knife, canter away. Because Engage has so many other things you can do to enemies, be it the Freeze Staff, be it Corrin's not Draconic Hex, but Draconic Aura, the one that prevents them from moving entirely. Those are much stronger, and so they kind of take the place of Hobble. But never discount the fact that Hobble plus Canter can allow you to slow certain enemies and prevent them from really closing the gap at all. It's not bad. It has its uses, but it is pretty niche, and other things do its job better. Spell Harmony. When initiating combat with a tome, gain attack equal to the number of adjacent allies with tomes. You're at the top of C tier. You can do a lot with this. You can get... The fact of the matter is, I probably should put this in B tier, but I'm putting it in C tier because I just don't like it. Having like 3 or 4, potentially, more realistically 1 or 2 extra damage with tomes if you're doing something like an Olwyn Dire Thunder build, or just, you know, enemy phasing with a really fast mage with Bolganone or something. You can do it. That 1 or 2 extra points of damage will help, but it doesn't just require you to position yourself, it requires you to deploy multiple units that are also using tomes. I don't think Spell Harmony is that good, even though it's a really easy way to get that couple extra points of damage that usually means the difference between one rounding and not. Just use a backup unit instead. Yeah, that's my hot take. That's my hot take about Spell Harmony. Just use a backup unit instead, because you're going to be dealing that extra 4 or 5 points of damage with a backup that you have to pre-position anyway. And Spell Harmony is not going to work if you aren't pre-positioning your units. It's that simple. Just use a backup instead. It's more well-rounded, more versatile, and it's better. Chaos Style, I think, is legitimately an A-tier skill. When unit initiates combat with a physical attack against a foe with magic, or vice versa, grants +3 speed. 3 speed is nothing to sniff at, especially when it's on a decently fast Mage Knight, but that's just a little bit short of doubling someone like Anna, who has pretty good speed, but can sometimes just get lost in that middle speed zone of not being able to double. Chaos Style is really good because it allows you to basically guaranteed double mages with physical attacks, and it's pretty solidly double slower infantry with magic attacks. It might not push you above doubling factor against fast infantry like swordmasters or thieves, but against middling ones, 3 extra speed goes a long way. Diffuse Healer. When a unit is healed by a staff, all adjacent allies recover 50% of the HP that the unit recovered. This is for Martial Masters. I think it's a B-tier skill. I think the fact that this allows you to basically tank damage on one unit, take damage on multiple units, but heal one unit and potentially heal multiple because of that. Diffuse Healer is a pretty good skill. It's niche. It requires a specific setup and a specific scenario to really make use of, but it's not bad. It really saves you some healing turns when you just need a little bit of extra healing across multiple units. Or if, for instance, you're using multiple Martial Masters and they're all trying to chain guard, and they're like, okay, you got hit by a chain guard, you're down like 3 HP. I like that it's on a Martial Master because they're going to be chain guarding, which means that they're probably going to have lower HP anyway, and have some damage taken anyway, so they'll always be a healing target, and then you can just give a couple extra hit points to someone else too. Is it ideal? No. Is it great? I don't really think so. Is it good enough? Yeah. It's a B-tier skill. Self-healing. Unit can target itself with healing staves. How serious are we talking here? It's on High Priest. You know, if these 2 skills were swapped... Actually, no, never mind. Just, if self-healing were on Martial Master, this would be easily A tier. Because you would just chain guard, and then you'd heal yourself. And then chain guard, and then heal yourself. And then you have, like, infinite experience. And you're being useful. Unfortunately, it's on High Priest, who's not really designed to take hits anyway, and if they do, it's like, eh. This skill will get you a little bit extra experience. Every once in a while, it'll be nice if you're running really light on staff units, so you don't have to rely on having a second staff unit or like an elixir on your healer. If you only have one healer, it's not a bad skill, and it'll get you some opportunities to get a little bit of extra experience here and there. But I think it's only really a C-tier skill because while it's a nice niche, it's not really a useful one. Pass, I want to think is better than it is. Being able to move through enemies is nice. Doing so in a game where your thief only has 5 movement means you're not getting through many enemies. And in a game like Engage, where if you can't get through 1 or 2 enemies, you're probably in a line that's several enemies deep. It can be pretty nice to scoot through an enemy and get to a bush or column, and then you can't get hit. It has some uses and stuff like that. But I think overall, it's not super useful. Actually, you know what? I'll do it like that, yeah. I think diffuse healing is fun, but it's not that good. I think Pass, for the couple times that it really works, it is really nice to have, and so I think it's more B tier than C tier. Clear the Way is actually A tier. Unit space and adjacent spaces have a movement cost of 1 for allies. It's actually A tier because, especially in later maps, there are so many maps with terrain features like miasma and fire that slow your movement. Miasma, fire, water, smoke, trees. There are so many features that slow movement that being able to set up Clear the Way is great. And Clear the Way also works when you do your own stuff. Like, I don't know how many times I set up fog before positioning all my units and then realized, oh wait, I can't move through my own fog, it slows me down too. Clear the Way helps with a decent number of that. Griffin Knights are also just kind of solid units in their own right. They have really good speed and decent strength. They have staves. They have 1 major weapon access. Clear the Way is great. Is it as useful as some of these other skills? I don't think it's as impactful, but it, as far as a utility skill goes, it's great because there's a lot of places to use it throughout the game. Air Raid. Air Raid, why aren't you good? Air Raid is incredibly good on a handful of maps. Unfortunately for Air Raid, so what Air Raid does is that if you initiate combat from a space the foe cannot enter, basically, if you initiate combat from a space that says flying only and the foe is not flying, gain speed +5 during combat. +5 speed is insane. It is huge. It's a lot of speed. However, how many maps, 1, have flyers only terrain features, and 2, have enemies that are not flyers that like to hang out near flyers only terrain features? When Air Raid activates, it is great. Good luck getting Air Raid to activate when you really want to have it. And last but not least, Special Dance. Special Dance is the top of A tier. Dancers are insane. Special Dance gives your dance +3 dexterity, speed, and luck for a turn. It's fantastic. The dance itself is the most important part, but giving a unit a dance and then having them be faster, more accurate, and less likely to be hit and crit in return is great. Special Dance is fantastic. I think it's a great skill. I don't think it's as game-altering as Brave Assist, but it's good. So, as we now typically do, let's name the tiers. Subscribe tier is best class skill, no question, Brave Assist. A tier is always nice to have. B tier is niche but nice. C tier is actually, yeah, A tier is always nice to have. B tier is but being it's good, but it has a proc chance. It's nice to use, has a good niche, but that niche doesn't come up very much. But tier. C tiers could be worse, you know? At least it has some value. And D tier is don't even. Yeah, there you go. There's your tier list. You're welcome. Yeah. I would love to have it be S, A, B, C, D everywhere, but just use Brave Assist. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Till next time, this is Mythro Zenith signing out.